Right, so we are working on the old 12 valve. So if you guys don't know, we were doing a tow series on my 3/4 ton, which is a 95 extended cab long box 4-wheel drive. It does have a built motor in it now, but I'm putting it back to this motor for you guys so that we can go through the whole process of building the engine back up again. So I have done a few things. Go check out those other videos. They're in this same playlist. So today, I'm not sure how far we're gonna get today. I wanted to so I painted the intake plate right there on the stand. Hopefully you can see it in the video. I don't know if it's gonna be dry or not, so I don't know if we'll be able to put the lines on, but that's what I was hoping to do, but I forgot to paint it. Anyways, I still need to do the valve lash, so maybe we'll do the valve lash today. This rear plug I need to pull out. That's the reason I have it marked there, because we're gonna put some sort of a coolant setup on this a little bit, because anyways, we'll talk about that later. So we're gonna put the injectors in. The injectors that I decided to do are a 6x10 hole with extra lift, so an extra 10 thou Pinta lift for more fuel. I was gonna do a stock injector, but I don't have a set of stock injectors. I don't even have nozzles to build stock injectors. So this would be classified as like a 50, 60 horse injector. Maybe even a touch more than that with the extra lift. But they'll pair well with the turbocharger that we're using. So we're gonna put the injectors in. I just finished building the injectors not that long ago. We're gonna put the injectors in and work on some other stuff. So let's get after it here. So as far as the injectors go, I always bag them up, just they're easier to carry, and I have the bag sealer and everything. So we are gonna be using the thin washers. I prefer using the thin washers. Completely up to you guys what you want to do. I like the thin washers to get the injector as far into the bowl as you can, because you can run a little bit more timing, and they will also make a little bit more power the deeper that you are. Well, you can make more power, I should say. I shouldn't say they do make more power. They'll make more power because you can run more timing. That is something that I will actually, there again, when we get a dyno, which hopefully will be in the next year or two, or will be, I shouldn't say, hopefully. I want to do a bunch of testing. That's part of the reason I want the dyno. So this is what I use. It just needs to be a tacky grease. This is actually not even super tacky stuff, but it's pretty tacky. You just put a dab will do you. Okay. And that's literally all you have to do, because then that don't fall off, right? So we are gonna put the injector in. Bring my gun. So I'm not gonna show you guys in real time putting them all in. I'll go into time lapse to do that, because it doesn't make sense. You do want to, I don't know if you guys will be able to see in the video, there is a notch inside here for the injector to go in. Like if you put it in there, you can actually, so if you get it here, you can turn it and then it drops in. You want to make sure that it drops in and engages in that properly, because if it doesn't, you can wreck stuff. I bead blasted these. I realize not everybody has a bead blaster, but wire wheel, you know, get them cleaned up or whatever. I always like to put a little bit of lube on them, because, well, I'll be taking these in and out a bunch of times. So any sort of lube, you don't have to use ARP lube. It's just happens to be what I have sitting there. So you can tighten that. I like to get them started at least by hand, and then use that. Now for torquing, spec on it is 44 foot-pounds. I find 44 foot-pounds not enough. Completely up to you. I do 55 foot-pounds. So you can do more. I don't know. So also depends on how it feels, because it sucks if they leak, because you have to take all the lines off to fix it. So I'm gonna do the rest of that. I'll come back off a time lapse, and then we'll probably do valve lash. Maybe we'll do the valve lash, because I'm still waiting for that paint to dry, because I want to put the lines on, but obviously we can't do that until the paint is dry. So in a time lapse.
1, 2, 3, 4.
12 valve, setting it up, you need to find your top dead center. Now, if you don't know how to find top dead center on a 12 valve, the easiest way to do it, sneak over here, is to, now there's usually a pump in the way here, so it's not quite as accessible, but I haven't put the pump back on this, so I figured I would do that. This is an engine that the used engine I'm putting in one of my trucks. But this right here is your time pin. So if you roll the engine around, you will feel that snap in. Now, if it's really sticky, usually what I do on them is there's a little metal retainer. I pop the metal retainer out, pull the plug right out, and usually I'll use my bore scope or a mirror to see when it's lined up. That's the easiest way to do it, especially for doing valve lash. That by far is the easiest way to do it. So for finding your top dead center. Now, there is a couple other ways, but that's the easiest way on these. Now, when you do that, one thing I do recommend, now the front of this engine is not together, but when you do that, if on your engine, you're gonna have a sensor right here that comes to the harmonic balancer, which is your crank sensor. If you just take paint marker, something like this, and mark on your harmonic balancer, then you know that that's top dead center. It depends on whether it's 1 or 6. This is top dead center compression stroke number 1 is where we are right now. So I've already lined it up. And also, if you have this front cover off, this dowel is always going to be straight up, and then your timing marks are right here. So if this is lined up and your timing mark is straight up, you're awful close to it. Now, I pushed the pin in just to make sure I was in the right spot. Force habit. So that being said, let's go on to the valve lash side of things. Not a super long process, and some of this I might put into time lapse for you guys just to make it so the video isn't really long. All of the, like I said, all of these are the same way. So I'm gonna set, there is a debate whether you do 10 and 20, so 10 intake, 20 exhaust. You can do 8 and 18 as well. For this one, I'm doing 10 and 20 just because I will be in here retorquing and everything, because we just did a head gasket, O-ringed and did a head gasket on this. Hasn't run yet. So, and these rockers, when we machine these actually aren't even the original rockers on this thing. So if you were to bring this to a machine shop and have the head surfaced and the rockers done, pretty good chance, well, I shouldn't say pretty good chance, you need to do a valve lash. So that, just take that into consideration. You know, if you're in doing something on the engine, it's not a bad idea at least to check it. So we're gonna get into doing this now. On this one, sometimes, like on the common rails, it's an Allen key. I can't remember what size it off the top of my head. And then the nut is the same size. It's actually 14 mil. I use a 9/16 because it's a little bit looser and I find it a little easier to get into. Now, the easiest way on this, because we know we're top dead center, compression stroke number 1. You're gonna do your valve lash. It's really easy to know which ones to do, because I know lots of people don't know which ones to do. It's very easy to do. So your number 1, you're gonna do intake, exhaust, and then on your next cylinders, see how this one's down, so obviously you can't do it when it's down. So your intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust. And then what we're gonna do is roll the motor over 360 degrees. And then we're gonna do, now we're number 6 is on compression stroke. So we're gonna do intake, exhaust, and then do the opposite of what we just did, right? So your intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust. Make sense? So we'll get after doing this here quick. So intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust. These are going to be way out to lunch because, like I said, they're not even the right rockers off the engine. So, and as far as drag goes, there is some feel to it, but when like, that's too tight in my opinion. So there should be drag. You should feel drag. Now, if the engine is oily, you're gonna have a lot less drag because it's a lot on this side. tight. So you should have some drag there, but you don't want like an astronomical amount of drag. So now that was doing 10 on the intake, 20, now we're doing 20 on the exhaust, same idea, and rinse and repeat. So I'm gonna roll it over now. So we're gonna go 360 degrees. We got compression. That's good. And all I'm looking for is the line to be straight up, or the pin to be straight up and down while I'm doing this. So now, because we already did these ones, we're now going to do the other ones. So something you should do, probably not a horrible idea to do, is should mark them. I mark them usually. So we just did exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, and then we did both of these, right? Because then you know that they're done. If you happen to get a phone call, somebody shows up, stop for the night, whatever it may be, you know you didn't finish. Like I said before, it's the same process over again. So start with the exhaust, because we're gonna do this one. Just loosen these all off here quick. Now obviously, there's not a lot of stuff in my way, so it can be a little harder when there's stuff in your way. But not a big deal. So something too, if you are going to be monkeying with these trucks all the time, something I recommend to do is take a keychain and some bent Allen keys, feeler gauges, and put a 10 and 20, because then you don't have to worry about trying to figure it out all the time. Myself personally, that's what I do. All right guys, to recap, we just did the valve lash on this thing. Now if you're doing a common rail, something I did want to mention to you is on a common rail that you don't have a timing pin. This timing pin is not a thing. So if you're doing a common rail, when you bring, I'll take a picture and show you. I have one right there that'll be marked. I'll pull it out and I'll take a picture. So you'll see it right now in the picture. So on those, the top dead center is going to be straight up and down, and the harmonic balancer is marked like I showed you in the picture. Now, if you're doing a VP44 engine, on the front of the cover right here, it'll actually be marked TDC, and you turn the pump gear where the Woodruff key is in the pump gear straight up and down, and then that is top dead center. So just take that into consideration. If you're doing a common rail or a VP44, that is how the easiest way to tell. So the common rail obviously is the easiest one. You can just roll around until top dead center straight up. And all you're gonna do, if you're just doing a valve set on it per se, you're just gonna want it to, if you have it on top dead center, you're just gonna wanna grab your rocker on 1 and 2, or on number 1. If it's tight, that means that you're on compression stroke number 6, right? So you can either go 360 degrees around again and bring it and start with number 1 and do it, or you just work in the opposite direction of the way that I just did it, obviously, right? So that way you would be, you know, doing your exhaust, intake, exhaust, and then roll it over and do the same thing. So now we got the valve set all done on her. I think I'm going to, I got the, where is it? I'm going to leave this aluminum. I'm not going to paint it. So I believe we're going to be changing this. I'm going to go to a bigger filter. We're going to up the lines, but we're going to put it together stock for now and then up the lines and do all that stuff later. So keep tuned for that. But we're going to put the intake plate on because hopefully it's dry enough that I can touch it, I think. So we're going to peel the tape off here. And I always cover these intake plates up whenever I'm working on one of these things, because if you drop something in there, it turns into a bad day. You can use a gasket. I don't personally like the paper gaskets. If you get a steel gasket, lots of times they don't seal, but you get a steel gasket or you get one of the fiber, I don't know, fibery type gaskets. I personally use K-sealant. You can use whatever you want, but they are bad for blowing out. I don't know if you guys, any of you guys, let me know down in the comments if any of you guys follow geez, I can't think of his name. I know his real name, but that doesn't do you any good. Stocky bald man. I think that's what it is. I'll put a link to his channel. He's got a 2nd gen dually that he did basically like a quick restoration type deal on over the winter time. Just went through everything and fixed a bunch of stuff up. I think he had an engine problem, if I remember right. If you happen to be watching, just you can tune in here or chime in. But I'll put a link for his description or for his channel if you guys want to go check his channel out. Help build him. I don't know if he's at 1,000 yet or not. I can't remember. Yeah, he must be at 1,000 by now. But if not, either way, if you like his content, then give him a like and a follow and all that jazz. Because he does do some, this is kind of like my last video last week there, me talking about certain things that that I do that is hard to relay, I guess you would say, because I've done it for so long. He is just starting out kind of idea, so there's a bunch of stuff that he's doing, it's for the first time. So some of that might be insightful to you guys. He seems like a pretty decent dude. He's a province over from me. He's out of BC, but not that makes any difference, but just thought I would mention, if you guys are interested in checking his channel out, go over and check his channel out. Because I'm sure he would appreciate it. Those bolts are not the right bolts. Those ones are too long. But I know these are the right ones for this. So we can bolt this on. There, that one right there. That's fine. I'm gonna switch this one, because that's where the brackets go. We want the little longer bolts to go there. All right. Now that I got that kerfuffled around, I do recommend, if you're using K-sealant, to make sure you put all the bolts in, because otherwise the K-sealant will lock up. Will lock up, and then you have to screw around trying to get the bolt in. I guess I'll grab a couple washers, we could hook that up. Not that it makes any difference right at the moment, but intake plate on there. We gotta put this little line back on, which I have to dig in the bucket for it there, because it's in the bottom. I seen it in the bottom when I was digging for something else. So I think at this point, what we need to do is I have to cut the fuel heater off of the little spacer, because I don't want to wait for one. I thought I had a couple, but apparently I don't. Anyways, I must have sold them. So I'm going to cut that off there, and then we're going to put the new exhaust manifold on, because I did buy an exhaust manifold. Spoiler alert, because I don't really want to I don't want to put a regular 12 valve one on it, because I know that I'll be taking it off and blah, blah, blah. So maybe we'll put the so I'm going to do that. We'll put the I'm gonna build a heavy duty fuel pump. We'll do that right now. Cut that piece off of there. And yeah, I'm gonna throw that in a time lapse. So I'm gonna cut that off, put the pump on. I'll show you guys putting the pump together just quick. I have done a video on that prior, but I will do a video on that. We're gonna clean this surface off. I'll do that in time lapse, bolt the intake or the exhaust manifold on, and we'll do a couple other little things in time lapse, and then I'll come back.
All right, guys, being the video is getting pretty long here now, I'm going to cut off this one, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Remember, like, share, comment. Remember, it's not rocket science.